Welcome back to the Black and Gold Report. We're out here at Varsity Tennis Courts with head tennis coach Robin Langley. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Will you go ahead and walk us through some serving?
This is Hannah Herlocker, senior on our team, and we're going to start by looking at the right-handed serve. And so basically what we want to start with is her footwork. For a right-hander, what you're going to want to do is put your left foot and you want to point it towards this net post over here. I don't think you guys can see it on camera, but she's going to point it towards the net post on this side. Whether she's serving from the deuce side or the ad side, she's always going to have that left foot facing the same way. The next thing we want to focus on, probably the most important part of the serve, is the toss. With the toss, if you're a right-hander, you want to think about if you were to picture a clock out in front of you, that a right-hander would be tossing at 1 o'clock. Hannah, if you were to put your racket all the way straight up, extend your arm, your toss should be at least that high, because what you want to do is, because your serve has to come down into the front part of the court, you want to make sure that you're creating that angle, so you need to have a high toss. So if you were to picture a clock, you want to toss at 1 o'clock and you want to have that toss out in front. And notice when she lets it drop that it's bouncing in the court. Go ahead and a couple more. Notice that it's high and it's out in front. And if she tosses that ball out in front, what's going to happen is she's going to have to move forward into the court after she makes contact, and that's where she's going to get her power from. The other place she's going to get her power from are from her legs. It's very similar to a throwing motion. She's going to start with her hand and her racket together, and what she's going to do is she's going to come all the way around, and typically you're going to get into what's called the back scratch position. If you can hold the back scratch position, you'd want to have your elbow facing the back fence, face that way, there you go. And from there, and again, these are little parts that would go into one fluid motion, but when you stop and break it down, this is how you would do it. And then from there, she would be tossing the ball at 1 o'clock and out in front. And what she's going to want to do from that point is extend all the way up, and she's going to want to pop that wrist and follow through so she can bring that ball down. So when we put it all together, here's what it should look like. Notice that she's fallen into the court. As long as she hasn't touched the line, it's not a foot fault. Good. Follow through. What she's going to do is just basically the opposite. So now her right foot's going to point towards the opposite post. And again, that's going to be on the deuce side and the ad side. Everything else is going to stay the same in terms of where she wants to toss a ball. If you're looking at a clock, is going to be at 11 o'clock. But the whole motion, everything else stays the same. You want to have a nice high toss, and then everything else stays the same. So go ahead and serve a couple. Follow through the other side of your body. So again, Leanne's a lefty, but what you want to pay attention to is the footwork. Notice that she's getting turned to the side. She's got both hands on her backhand, which is typical for most female athletes to have a two-handed backhand. And again, she's a lefty, so that's going to look different from Hannah. But if you notice, every time she keeps her feet moving. Typically what you want to do is make sure on your grip, if you can hold your racket out, that you want to hold the racket kind of like a handshake. You want to make sure that your hand is all the way down to the bottom of the racket. Make sure, if you show them the back side, Leanne, that your finger is not up. You never want to have your finger up. You want to have it down. It's a good way to break it. And then what you're going to see is she's going to have to adjust that grip so that the racket face stays closed as she's hitting the ball to hit more topspin, and she'll have to adjust it, so you will see her hands move between her forehand and her backhand. Constant footwork for tennis. You always want to hit and move. You want to make sure that you're always on your toes and moving. Volleys are probably the easiest shot in tennis because you're taking the power from the person at the baseline and you're blocking it back. Unlike every other stroke in tennis, you're not going to swing, you're going to punch and keep everything out in front. Hannah actually should be able to see the ball hit the strings of her racket, but you'll notice that she's going to shorten it up and everything's going to be out in front. So, and the other thing is she's going to try to step into every shot, but it just kind of depends on the pace that's coming at her. You got to have quick reactions. on your volleys. This is where we want to win the points in doubles, is at the net. So we work a lot on our volleys. Notice her feet are moving. Notice she can't take the racket back because there's just too much pace coming on the ball, so it's all about blocking it back. Again, two hands. She's got two hands on her backhand. When we play doubles, we're now covering the entire part of the court. This would be your typical positioning when we are serving the ball. So if Leanne is serving, Hannah would be at the net. And Leanne's goal in the style that we play doubles is to serve and volley and get in with Hannah. So if you want to go ahead and do that, Hannah's going to be moving around a lot. Often she's going to give signals to tell Leanne where to serve or where she's going. And the next ball would typically come back, and UNCP Tennis wants to win all of their balls at the net. So that's why we try to hit a lot of volleys. Now, if we were to look at, if we were returning serve, Hannah's going to start in this position now. That's kind of the hot spot. She's on the service line. So if Leanne were returning serve, our goal again at UNCP is to hit that return and for both of them to come into the net. So if we just pretended like you got one, Hannah would go ahead and close in, and again, we both want to be there at the net. One of the things that UNCP does, if you can head back real quick and you're back on the service line, let's say that Leanne's getting a second serve now, which typically is going to be weaker. Hannah's going to move up. This is one thing that we try to do, and what she's trying to do is to put pressure on the server to either double fault, or it's going to be a weaker serve, so Leanne's going to try to put that ball in a position where Hannah can poach on it.
All right, thank you, Coach, so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And thank you for watching this week's edition of the Black and Gold Report. Until next week, go Braves.